Okay. Yeah, the primary sector is really where economic development takes place. If you take one of those petrochemical plants and you put it out in the middle of West Texas, go back 5 years later, and you're going to find a community of 10 or 15,000 people. Because it's not just you have the employees and the payroll that they spend, but then you have the secondary sector, the other companies that move in to provide services and sell equipment and things to the petrochemical plant. They have employees. They're going out. You're going to find grocery stores, gas stations, churches, schools, everything that a community needs. And this is, when you get done, you have a multiplier of 6 or 7 for most of these petrochemical plants because of the additional jobs that they create. So when we're talking about development in North Lake Charles, economic development requires primary sector and secondary sector businesses. And a lot of those businesses along the loop are primary sector businesses that they take resources and they market them, sell them out of the area. You look at Grey Rock, they're selling petroleum products to Mexico and to Canada. And that's money that's coming back from outside of the community that's creating jobs here, payroll checks, and that's being respent here. That's bringing new money in. And we need more of that. Now, one thing with North Lake Charles, one of the aspects of that is that a lot of people want to see the redevelopment, residential redevelopment of North Lake Charles, and they somehow see that as being contradictory or conflicting with industrial development. But you realize you can't have revitalization and rebirth of the community without having a tax base, an economic purpose, and that's why these two have to coexist. They have to work together. And that was one of the ideas behind maybe developing an industrial park or enterprise zone, where you would take some of the additional revenue that's generated from the industrial development and dedicate that to the being used for community development. So with an industrial park or enterprise zone, they would set up a board of directors and specify incremental funds, additional funds coming in, a certain portion of those to go to that development board, and that money could be used as the development board might consist of some of the community leaders from North Lake Charles. And they would make the determination of how that money is spent to develop the community. But the money wouldn't go anyplace else. It wouldn't go to South Lake Charles, it wouldn't go to Moss Bluff, it wouldn't go into the parish, it would go to North Lake Charles. And that's one of the problems that North Lake Charles has right now, is that it's not economically feasible on its own, so it relies on funding from the city, and a lot of times the city says they're going to do something and the money runs out before they do it, which is why Enterprise Boulevard ends where it does. So I think this has to be a win-win situation, a win situation for industries, but it also has to be a win situation for the community. And one of the best ways to do that is through establishing an industrial park or enterprise zone. You get tax advantages, you create that growth, you dedicate those funds to improving the community. You can't, when you look at jobs, a lot of these businesses, we're looking at some pretty significant expansion plans. they can say we're going to give preferential hiring to minorities, to local residents, but you can't force people to stay where they are. You know, the African American community at one time was pretty much restricted to North Lake Charles, but they moved out. It's all over. We've got the minorities are very much everywhere, and so it's hard to come up and say, okay, we're only going to hire people from North Lake Charles to work on that project. But you can give preferential hiring to especially the small businesses, a lot of the African American businesses that are trying to compete to get in for these contracts, construction companies and things. There's nothing wrong with having preferential hiring based